Hello and welcome to the OTB channel, Old Tech Bloke. Something a little different for a midweek video. I've just arrived home after working away for a few days, and whilst I was away from home I downloaded the latest version of Codeweaver's Crossover Linux. Now, this is a commercial product, and I'm sure that there will be some people out there who don't believe that a Linux YouTube channel should necessarily focus on commercial products. However, I've always been a pragmatist. Since I started using Linux back in 2004, the one thing that I've always found a bit of a problem is the inability, potentially, of being able to use Microsoft Office. Quite simply because I've been tied into Microsoft Office at least 10 years before I started using Linux back in the Windows 3.1 days, and I use it all day at work and have done for many years. I understand it, I know where everything is. I'm a little bit of an Excel power user in terms of formulas and doing my work in Excel on a day-to-day basis, and not having the ability to have a native package, a Microsoft Office package on Linux, has always been one of the downsides for me. And I'm sure, like many people, there's always going to be one package which you can't run in Linux, or you think you can't run in Linux, that perhaps puts you off converting fully. And in truth, it's why I still dual boot. I dual boot for Microsoft Office support, and I dual boot for Microsoft OneDrive. I don't particularly like Microsoft OneDrive, but where I work, they're wedded to it, and so I need access to it to grab my files. So I have dual booted over the years, and I still do. But in the last 5 to 6 years, the need to actually boot into a copy of Windows has got less and less. These days, to be honest, I tend to boot into Windows not so much for Office, but more to upgrade SSD firmware and to run a quick BIOS upgrade. And other than that, I don't really use it. Truth be known, I could probably very easily do without a dual boot system now, and I'm at the stage where I'm looking to blow away my Windows installation. It's only taken me 15 years, so if you're still dual booting, don't feel bad about it. There are other options, of course. You can run a virtual machine, run Windows in a virtual machine, and with the modern versions of VirtualBox and the power of modern desktops, that's not a problem, it's a good answer. There are also the native Office suites. LibreOffice is absolutely superb. The problem is not, for me, LibreOffice. LibreOffice is a great Office suite. It's free, it's functional, it does everything that you need it to do if it was the only Office suite that you work with. My problem is compatibility. If you've just got simple Microsoft Office files, it works pretty well in terms of opening them and editing them. But when you have complex Office files and complex spreadsheets, it's not always the case. Also, I've spent 20 odd years working with Microsoft Office. I know where everything is. Do I want to learn where everything is in a different Office package? Not really. As much as I like fiddling about with software that I enjoy, Office suites are boring. It's what I associate with work. If I've got to work in an Office suite, I want to get the work done as quickly as possible. I really don't want to try and learn a new program or a new suite and where everything is in that new suite. Hey, don't get me wrong, if learning new Office packages is your thing, you're in clover. Go for it. But for me, I just want a simple answer. And I found that simple answer many years ago in a commercial product called CodeWeaver's Crossover Linux, or Crossover Office as it used to be called. What I want to do today is I want to show you how I'm going to try and install for the first time ever successfully Office 365, which I do have a subscription to. I haven't managed to get it to work before, but the latest version of CodeWeaver's software theoretically works looking at the community ratings. So let's see how we do. So let me start by saying CodeWeaver's Crossover Linux is a commercial product. It's a commercial product that I pay for myself. I don't get it given to me free. And it's a product that I've been using all the way back to when I first started messing about with Linux, and I needed to have Microsoft Office support. I struggled to get Wine working, and there was an evaluation copy of Crossover Office, as it used to be called, included in the Xandros installation. Xandros are long gone, by the way. And I used it to install Office, and it worked. And I've been using it pretty much ever since. I don't buy a new copy every year. I'll be honest, I tend to buy a copy, and as long as it continues to work for me across Linux versions, I'll stay with that single copy. If it stops working properly as distributions get upgraded and I want to run later versions of Microsoft Office, well then I will go out and I will buy a new copy. And this is what I've just recently done. I have been running Microsoft Office 2007 very successfully in CodeWeaver's software for a number of years now. And Office 2007 has got to the stage where certainly Word, Excel and PowerPoint run flawlessly for me. They really do. I'm pretty much at native speed. Now, it's a commercial product, and yes, it's based on the Wine project, and you can download Wine for free. However, it's never a straightforward thing to use. You often, for installing various Windows packages, have to know hacks and download additional DLLs, etc., etc. And to be honest, I'm a man with a very low boredom threshold, and trying to use Wine and get it to work properly soon exhausted my boredom threshold. So I went to CodeWeaver's. This is still Wine, but it's a version of Wine that they hack to get particular programs to work. They give you a GUI to install the packages that you want to install, and as it actually says on their page, we contribute all of the work that they do back to the Wine project, and at the moment they make up for 2/3 of Wine commits, which is quite impressive really. They don't just support Microsoft Office, they will support a whole range of different products, and they all run better or worse than each other. They have a what runs page here, and you can type, I don't know, let's look at Office 365. This, by the way, is the reason, or should I put a space in between? This is the reason that I have just upgraded my copy to see if Microsoft Office 365 actually runs with the latest version. And it gets a 4-star rating. Okay. How well does it run? Well, they give a breakdown here, and these star ratings, by the way, are given from the community. So Microsoft Word, in Linux, it's given it 4 stars out of 5, which isn't bad at all. Excel, 4 stars out of 5. PowerPoint, 3 stars out of 5. So that probably means it's functional, but there's a few little bugs here and there. OneDrive is down to 2, though. Outlook, 3 stars out of 5. I have tried Outlook in the Office 2007 version that I'm running, and it does seem to work. It's a bit laggy, crashes a few times, but to be honest, I don't use Outlook anyway in Linux. As long as it runs Word, PowerPoint and Excel, I'm happy. Now, when you download and install a copy of CodeWeaver's software, they have Debs available, they have RPM packages available, and they have a straightforward generic installer, which is just a SH file which you can launch. It creates a separate Windows menu, and you can see that here. It also creates a crossover menu, and if you want to install software, you simply go to the crossover menu, open it up. Might take a little while to open, but there we are. It lists in the main window what I've currently got installed, and as you can see, it's Microsoft Office 2007, and it gives you the option to install additional software. They have something called cross ties, and if you click update, it downloads all the formulas and cross ties for the particular applications that they support. You simply type the name of the application you want to install in there, and you go forward. You point it towards your executable, and it will install it. Hopefully error-free. If they do not have a cross tie, a formula for their particular or for the particular application that you want to install, well, you take your chances. You can still attempt to install it, and sometimes it will work, sometimes it won't. But certainly for the Microsoft Office applications, it's worked pretty well for me. So I've actually dragged these icons onto my Plank dock from the menu here. As you've probably noticed, I like Plank. It works well, and I've got Word, Excel and PowerPoint 2007 on my dock. So if I click on the Word, there you go. We suddenly have Word has opened up. Strangely enough, I'm not seeing the page in OBS. It's coming up blank, but what I'm actually looking at on the screen is a standard Word document. If I click Excel, and again, it's quite strange. It's not, there we go. It wasn't showing up properly in OBS, but it is now. And if I click on PowerPoint, there we go. I think it's something to do with my dual screens. PowerPoint opens. Let me try Word again and just click on OBS. There we go. That's what I can see in front of me, the standard Word screen. And it works pretty well. If you want to give CodeWeavers a try, their pricing at the moment is you can buy 1 year's worth of Crossover Linux with support, 1 free phone support incident, but a year of email support and upgrades. It's £26.60. A reduced price at the moment, it was £38. Or normally you can just buy a single version, which is what I've tended to do in the past, because that's normally the cheapest. That's been discontinued for the time being, but it is being reintroduced, I believe, in November. So, okay. I've just purchased the latest version, which is 18.5 for 12 months. You can actually download a 30-day trial to see if it works for you, which I think is a great idea. What I'm going to do is I'm going to see if 18.5 will install Office 365. I haven't managed to get Office 365 installed previously. I think it was 17.5 was the version that I had previously of CodeWeavers, and it always errored out. But as I've got an Office 365 subscription, it makes sense to run the latest version if I can. Now, I don't want to blow away my Office 2007 installation on my Ubuntu Mate desktop, so I'm going to switch over to my Debian desktop. I'm going to install the latest version of Crossover, and we're going to give Office 365 a spin to see if it works. So let's see how well this works. I've downloaded the latest version of CodeWeaver's Crossover Linux 18.5 and installed it on my Debian desktop. It's a straightforward case of, I use GDebi. I just right-clicked on the downloaded file, clicked install, added my password, and it installed fine. It's created an entry now in my Mate menu, and I'm just going to launch it. And here we go. So, a straightforward application, and right at the bottom we've got install Windows software. So let me hit that and see what happens. Right, so it says, for best results, please allow Crossover to update its installation recipes. Okay, well, we'll let it update. And we now need to type the word or the words for the program that we want to install. And we want to install Office 365. Runs well, apparently. It's given 4 stars. Okay, so let's continue. Choose the installer file or choose the installer folder. Well, I've got a subscription to Office 365. I've saved it on my desktop, which is this file with a big long-winded name. I'm going to open it and select an installer source. Okay, it's picked that up. Let's hit continue. Crossover is ready to install Microsoft Office 365. Now, it's never worked in previous versions, this. Microsoft Office 2007 has installed flawlessly, but let's see if we can get it to work. I've got to put in my sudo password, as Crossover has decided additional packages need to be installed. Well, that's fine. I quite like the way that if extra packages are required, it just gives you a command line prompt and asks you to install. A lot of what it asks for are the 32-bit libraries for this. Press return to continue. Okay, so far so good. I can see it's downloading TrueType fonts, the Microsoft XML parser, the ASNA math font, preparing the system, and creating the Microsoft Office 365 bottle. Okay, so this could take a little while. We'll have to see how it goes. What I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to pause the recording and we'll come back to it when we've got a little bit further down the line. Right, I'm just coming back at this stage because it's installed all the core fonts and the XML parser. It's created the bottle. It's installing all its hacks, and it's now attempting to install Office from the exe file. What I quite like about Crossover is that any additional bits and pieces, Microsoft packages that need to be installed to support the dependencies, are installed automatically as soon as you put install Microsoft Office 365. As long as it has something called a cross tie attached to the program. And a cross tie is very simply a formula for installing Microsoft Office 365 with whatever hacks are necessary and whatever DLLs and additional programs. So unlike if you're just using native Wine, you don't have to figure all of that out yourself. CodeWeavers is doing the work for you. So let's wait for Office to install. I'll pause this again and we'll come back once it's complete. Well, that went quite smoothly. Microsoft Office 365 finished its installation. I did get a Wine error box that came up at the end about the XML parser, but I just cancelled it and the installation completed. I then was able to open up the Office applications, which are now integrated into my menu. Access, Excel, Internet Explorer, I'll talk a bit about that in a minute, OneNote, Outlook, PowerPoint, Publisher and Word. Now, I wouldn't even attempt to open Access because I don't think it's going to work, and to be honest, it's not a program that I use a great deal. Word, Excel and PowerPoint are the main programs that I'm going to need. When I first completed the installation, by the way, I've put the shortcuts down here on Plank. I opened up Word, which as you can see is opening absolutely fine, and I got a dialog box asking for me to activate the product. It kept failing every time I said activate online. I would get an error message along the lines of this feature isn't available right now, try again later. So I went on to the CodeWeavers forums and it suggested shutting the bottle, shutting the CodeWeavers application and reopening. That didn't work, it was still prompting me for activation. And so I went to another suggestion, and another suggestion was install Internet Explorer 8, and no, Internet Explorer 8 into the same bottle that I'd installed Office 365 in. So I did that through CodeWeavers software. It does it automatically, it manages the download. It did install, but it didn't install all of the components. The XML parser errored out. However, the installation did complete. Once it had completed, and you can see it actually in my Windows menu here, and I can actually launch it, and it's opening at the Wine HQ page, it seems to be working. And when I went back to open Word, it appears to have actually been activated. In fact, if I go to my account, everything is working fine. The product is activated. I can open files on my desktop. I'm obviously not going to open my confidential files, but I've played around opening various Word documents with embedded tables and graphics and what have you in, and it seems to work great. It's a little bit laggy compared to my Office 2007 installation, but it seems to work well enough. In terms of Excel, pretty much the same thing here. The only thing I'd say about Excel is it has, I don't know what this is, it has something in box A1 which disappears as you start to enter information in. It works in exactly the same way as I would expect. So if I wanted to do a formula and just do the total of those numbers there, I'm used to titling sum, dragging my mouse down, hitting enter, and there we go. I've downloaded a couple of files that I use for work that are incredibly complex, with really complex formulas in, even an embedded macro, and various graphs, tables and pivot tables. It seems to be working fine. The same can be said for the PowerPoint application, which I've always had quite a lot of luck with on my Office 2007 installation, and that works as well. Obviously, I've got to test these to destruction to see how well they actually work in relation to Office 2007. But for basic Word, Excel and PowerPoint, it's fine. Publisher seems to be functional as well. If I show you my applications menu, we've got Publisher there. Seems to be working. It's not something I necessarily use. One note though, I'm not able to sign into my Microsoft account, and Microsoft OneDrive doesn't seem to be working at all, which is a real shame, because I could then use my work Microsoft OneDrive and access most of the files that I use at work. But nevertheless, we're getting there. So at this stage, I'm actually quite pleased. And if, like me, you're tied into Microsoft Office, it might be an alternative for you. I'd say again, there's absolutely nothing with any of the Linux Office suites at all. There's nothing wrong with LibreOffice. They do an absolutely superb job. For me, it's just a question of compatibility with the Office suite that I have to use all day at work, and which I'm familiar with, and so I would rather run Microsoft Office. You can, of course, install more than just Office. When CodeWeavers when I first started using them, which was pretty soon after I started using Linux, it was actually called Crossover Office, and I think I was introduced to it when there was I had Xandros, and it had a trial version on it. But actually, the amount of applications that you can install, I mean, let's just have a look. If we go to, let's have a look at multimedia, video, deep burner free, media coder, special purpose, there's loads and loads of programs that you can install. Of course, what we always hear about is Photoshop, and not being a user of Photoshop, I'm not actually aware of how well it runs, but you can check the CodeWeaver's website, and I see it actually has cross-links there to some old versions, Photoshop 6 and 7, CS, CS2 and CS5. I've no idea what version we're on at the moment, but if you've got one of those versions of Photoshop, it might be worth giving it a try. Okay, so let's have a chat. So it would seem that you can run Office 365 in Linux, which is great. And I'm sure now that it's been cracked, that the support will get better and better. How well it runs in Linux, time will tell. I'll need to use it in anger, as they say, for several months before I can form an opinion. But it now installs, which is more than I've ever managed to get it to do. If you fancy giving CodeWeaver's software a spin, you can download the 30-day evaluation and see if it runs the software that you need it to run. Or, by all means, try Wine. I don't think there's anything wrong in running Windows programs in a compatibility layer if you absolutely need them. Personally, once I retire, which I'm afraid is still another 8 or 9 years away, you won't see Microsoft software anywhere on my computers. But for the time being, I'm just tied into them. Anyway, give it a go, see what you think. Hope you found this useful. Some people may find it a little bit contentious, but what I've wanted to do is to show you how I've dealt with the various problems that I've come across over the years in terms of compatibility and having to use one particular set of software at work and perhaps not having the facility to run it at home. I've never wanted to run Windows all the time at home. I've always wanted to run Linux for the last 15 years anyway. So I've tried to find ways to do that. Wine on its own didn't work for me. Codeweavers has. Anyway, that's it for today. And we'll speak again on Saturday. Stay well.